We're going to take a look at some of the changes in one of the biggest pricing tools available to comic book collectors up next on this video from Bronzeville Comics. Hey there, comic book community. This is Jim from Bronzeville Comics coming to you with another video. And in today's video, we're going to talk about a pricing app that is quite popular and has some changes and has changes for a reason. We'll take a closer look. But before we get started, please like, comment, subscribe if you're enjoying this content. And if you've been watching the channel, also follow us. I'm on Instagram at Bronzeville_comics. I have the same name on Whatnot, Bronzeville_comics. We do sales every Monday night at 10 p.m. Tomorrow night, a big Avengers sale, some really great Silver Age books, some bronze books. So tune in for that. And also my eBay store description is in the link is in the description below. So I'm one of the few comic book YouTubers that I think hasn't spoken on the recent controversy out of C2E2. And it got me thinking, I mean, like kind of this crazy thing about this idea of people taking their comic books, like how much people would pay for a comic book, like with some plastic wrapped around it, and you know, that goes for a premium. Wait, what? Completely different topic. I'm kind of my buddy Joe from 360 Comics did a video where he's like, I don't care. In the big picture, I really don't care, because I'm going to focus. I tend to focus my collecting more on positivity, and B, it's not something I'm going to buy. I'm not going to buy that book. So we might talk about it a little bit later on. What the main focus of today's thing is to discuss the changes in Covrprice. And I had noticed about 2 weeks ago, and it may have been like just a little quick beta test, that I was scrolling through to look for the value of a book. I may have even been bidding on something on Whatnot. I'm like, wait, this looks different. And then pretty shortly thereafter, it was gone. But they've made a full-blown change to the way that they categorize the data for raw comic books and how both raw and graded values are presented on their site. And there's a reason for this, I think, and it could be a very positive aspect. I'm actually in favor of what they've done, and it could be a favor for a lot of members of the collecting community. You may not agree with that, but that's your own personal preference, and we'll talk about that later. But let's take a closer look at what the website looks like right now. So here, we're going to look at a number of different books, different time periods and different price points to see how things have changed and to take a closer look at everything that Covrprice shows in their data. So we're going to start with a very popular Bronze Age book, and that is Incredible Hulk 181, the first appearance of Wolverine. So Covrprice, they give you a picture of the book. You have the option to go to the previous issue in that run or the next one. You can find that book in eBay or my comic shop. You can put it in your collection if you keep your collection here. I don't, and we're going to talk about that in just a few minutes. If it's a key, they list the key significance, last recorded sales value, and then most common raw and most common slabbed. So the most common raw book is a fine for $3,200 and an 8.0 for $6,800. You can see this trend is up 3%. They go through variant covers. We're not going to worry about that for this one. Total recorded sales, and this is basically, I think eBay and Heritage is where they pull most of their information from. Obviously, Whatnot doesn't really track sales like this. I don't think sales get on there. And the trend up 3%. Is that the same number? That's the same number we had up here. I don't know if these two numbers are always the same. 2 plus 2.98. We'll check that out when we look at another book. And you can see 1,000. There are 3,000 recorded sales, just over 1,000 raw, just under 2,000 slab, and the highest known value, a 9.8 in June of this year for $102,000. Now, here's where the change really lies. Now, it used to be that the slab sales were on the left and the raw on the right. That's reversed, which is fine. And what I really like is they've broken the raw sales, and I think there's a reason for this, into what is it, 8 categories? Near mint plus, and you can see that below that it's 9.6 to 10. Near mint 9 to 9.4, very fine. 7 to 8.5, fine. 6 to 6.5, very good, good. Fair to poor, and no grade. They have this information based on the approximate grades that are given to books when they are sold. Sometimes you'll see an eBay listing where the seller will give the book a grade for a raw book. On Heritage, they will. So that information is included here. Unfortunately, they don't give out, and they used to. They used to have in brackets the number of books in each of these categories. And over here on the right, you can see the slabbed sales. Now, what I like about this, and it's harder to tell from the slab sales because other than the 1.0, it says down here at the bottom, indicates sales older than 90 days. So the sales that are more than 3 months old are kind of faded, and the sales within the last 90 days are highlighted. So you can get a pretty good look at what the current values are within the last 90 days. So for this book, a lot of sales within the last 90 days. They do the FMV, which I guess would be the average within the last 90 days, and then the most recent sale and the date of that sale. So a lot of information to go through there. Issue summary, blah, blah, blah. You know, they give you a little synopsis of the book. The page count, which can be important. And then you can, series info, so you can look at other issues from the series, from 102, including -1, onward, about 24 per page. And you can scroll through that. But so we have it at a glance here, the sales data. And again, the raw comics are on the left. So if you're hunting for raw comics, that is pretty useful. Now, here, see sales data, you're going to get a lot more detail. They give you the raw stuff, and they give you a bar graph of where these sales lie. But what I like here is the near mint, and on the phone, actually, you'll see here, like this very fine scrolls until we get to the next group. On the phone, that's really useful. And it is useful when you have a lot of sales. So let's look at, let's say, fine sales. So they have all these sales from August 9th going all the way, and you could show more. There's plenty more. Going all the way back to 2017 of books that were graded here. I would look to price books. I used to look at this information, but I'd have to kind of scan through all of the raw sales to find the grade that I had in hand. Here I don't, and that's really useful. So if you have a book that's in fine condition, 3,500, 2,000, 5,100, 5,700, you know, you can kind of get an idea of where the sales have been. So that's pretty useful. And also you get that information for slabbed books. There's really always been that information here. Let's say the 9/8 and June 16th, 102,000. On April 7th, 96,000. And you can see how that book really took off in the last 2 years. Let's take a look at a more recent book, especially a book that kind of crested and has come down, but has a plethora of copies available, and that's Amazing Spider-Man 361. We're going to look at just the direct market edition. I'm going to scroll down here to the useful data. You can see near mints have recently sold for about $160 with a high of 180. Very fine for 151, fine for 108. That makes sense. Slab copies, nothing sold under a 7.5 recently. You can see mostly in the 9s are all kind of conglomerating the 8.5 to the 9.4, all in this like 130-ish range. 9.6, 221, 9.8, 530. So that's a pretty good picture of what the book looks like. If you want to go to more extensive data, you can do that as well. Let's say you think you have a near mint copy. You can see a whole bunch of near mint prices. If we go back to, let's say, last October, yeah, $225. If we go down to like fine minus copies, let's say fine copies, again, we're going back. I think this is my copy here. I think that's the one I sold. Oh, no, wait. No, I think it was this one. That might have been it. It was right when the movie came out. And you can see that price hasn't changed considerably since then. I mean, at $222 in April, that's kind of kooky. But again, it just gives us a ballpark, because when you're dealing with raw copies, you're not seeing what the book looks like. You don't know how reliable the seller was in grading their books, and that sort of thing. So there are a lot of other variables involved. Let's take a look at some other books. The book that I showed earlier, the slab book, the Batman 423. Mine's a second print, but let's take a look at the first print. Obviously, all these alternate versions, variant covers. You can see it's like, in any condition, it's kind of in the same range for recent sales. That's a little bit interesting. And you can see the trend from like the 7s all the way up. 8.5 for $212, $220. Actually, I have a second print. I want to look at what a 8.5 has been going for, because that's what I have. And we get a really nice snapshot, about 128. I guess there's been one sale. We could look at sales data there. Here, we'll look at Ultimate Fallout 4. Right? Raw, $500, $600. I mean, $600 for very fine. That's fairly pricey. It's interesting that here the very fine has a higher price point than the near mint or mint. But again, these are approximations. Do more research if you're going to buy the book or if you're going to sell the book. 9.8s in the $2,700 range. 9.6s in the just under $1,000. So that's a drop. What this doesn't give us is a more global picture of how the prices now compare to prices in the past. And I think Go Collect is a better source for that. But if you want a snapshot of what the book is worth right now. So I'm going to go to hell here. And let's take a look at this C2E2 exclusive, just for giggles. Because, yeah, the near mint's 500, or the near mint plus 500, the near mint's 400. So they're all in the 400 range. Really, the only sales, I guess, have been 9.9 for 1,800. Of a slab copy, I would have to, I'm not terribly interested in this book, but I just thought that would be kind of fun to see. Let's go to another one. Let's go to the Silver Age book. First Kingpin, Amazing Spider-Man 50. Obviously, you're going to get a much wider range of grades. Tougher to find in these higher grades, but mostly in the fine to good range, and you can see that kind of makes sense. You know, near mint 4,600, very fine. Older data 1,500, fine 1,200, and so on. That kind of makes sense. Again, what I wish they would include is the number of sales in each of these price points. I think that they used to have that. I think that would be helpful. You know, if it's one sale or 3 sales, it's not as meaningful as if there are 20 or 50 or 100 sales. And here we can see the graded books. A lot have been switching hands lately. In the last 90 days, almost every price point between 4.0 and 9.2 accounted for. So, gives you a general idea. So, you know, I just got one of these. I think it's like maybe a 5560. So you're talking about maybe $1,200 to $1,500 fair market value right now. I think that's useful. Let's do a big boy book from the Silver Age, Amazing Fantasy 15. And we could scroll down here. You can see under the raw sales, no sales in the last 90 days. And nothing above fine in terms of raw. And that is a sale that goes back to 2018. So not a lot of raw sales in the upper grades. A lot with no grade on them. Some in the fair to poor range. If you have a really low grade book, this could be useful. And if we look at the slab, I'm going to actually go back to the summary. So then under slabbed, we can see, you know, where it resides in this kind of, a lot of data there between a 1 and a 7.5. A lot of those price points covered. So if you had a graded book, you could get a decent idea of the value. Also, you want to compare it to values above and below the grade that you're looking at. So if I had a 3.0, I'd be interested in looking at the 2.5s and the 3.5s. okay, and maybe look at some older data just to really get a good idea of what that book is worth right now. Let's say you got a rare Golden Age book. I'm going to pull up one of my Ultimate Grails, Batman #1. Again, no sales. Everything is in that kind of faded grayer color for the prices, other than the brighter white for the sales within the last 90 days. A 9.4, one sold for $2.2 million. See, a 9.2 hasn't sold since 2013. At least you get the dates of the most recent sale, which can be useful. And if you have Batman 1, good for you. And then let's go to a more recent book that is been switching hands quite a bit. It's cooled off a little bit lately. Something is Killing the Children. We're only interested in the first print. Near mint, down to very good. Nothing in the poor range. I mean, it would be hard to find a book that's poor. But you can see the price point, near mint plus 800. But amazingly, look, nothing raw has sold in really since May for this book. And then the graded books, yeah, there have been recent sales of 9.4, 9.6, 9.8, and you get an idea of where those prices reside. Below that, nothing since 2021. Interestingly, I think a lot of people are just holding on to that book to see what happens next in terms of any potential TV or movie news. So now, why did Covrprice make this change? How does it benefit them? Other than the fact that they eliminated the number of sales in each of those categories, I think that's something they could easily put back. And if you're watching this, that's my recommendation. The reason I think they made this change is because it was announced about a month or two ago that Covrprice and CLZ, which is an app for cataloging your comic book collection, came to an agreement to use the pricing data from Covrprice to establish prices for books in your collection on CLZ. Now, I use CLZ quite a bit. And they had previously a relationship with a partnership with someone, I'm not sure who, or even if they released that information, for their data for pricing their books. Unfortunately, it was only for graded books. So if you had raw books, and especially if you had books that were, let's say, in the $20 to $80 range that people weren't really slabbing, you weren't getting accurate grades for those books, or accurate prices, I should say, for those books. But now, they said CLZ has said in the past that they believed in September they'd be able to go live with their new pricing app. There would be an extra charge. So if you have a subscription to CLZ, it would cost you, I think it's $7 a month or $60 a year. It might be $6 a month. I'm not sure. I believe it's $60 a year for a subscription to their pricing information that they are doing with Covrprice. Now, when that was announced on the Facebook forums for CLZ, there was a segment of the people that use it like, why do I want to know the prices? I just want to collect, basically saying, I don't care what the prices are. I don't want to know. I'm not flipping comics, that sort of thing. And that's fine. So you don't have to buy into that other part of the subscription. And there are other collectors who want to know the values. And I use CLZ because if I'm picking up a collection, I can put the collection in a separate section of CLZ. You can have a number of different collections. So I pick up a collection, I'll put it in by the date and where I got it from, and then all the books from that collection will be together. And I can, if I decide, well, I want to keep, I sold these books, I can remove them. If I want to keep them in my PC, I can just highlight those books and then take them over to my personal collection. Well, now with the pricing data, I could say, okay, I bought this collection for $1,000. And I can look at the pricing data once I've graded the books, especially if they're all raw, let's say. Once I've graded the books and cataloged them all, get the approximate value and see where I stand based on what I have. And it's also kind of fun to take your personal collection and see how much books are worth. Because the other thing, too, is I was surprised in cataloging my own books, every once in a while I'd come across a book that I did not know was of high value. For instance, there was a Marvel giveaway of a Resident Evil book in the mid-90s. I had no idea. I was just putting in. I'm like, oh, that's worth several $100s. So that can be useful to collectors that use CLZ. And I believe that is why Covrprice went with this, this change. Again, they have the segments. They have the ungraded segment because a vast majority of the books, if you look on, let's say, eBay, at least in the title, they don't give a condition. They'll just say, you know, super rare, you know, excellent, whatever. But some other sellers will attempt to put a grade on that book. How much we can trust those grades? Again, it's not a third-party grader, so it's just to give us a basic idea of where the value is. If you look at a book and you think it's approximately, let's say, a fine minus, you can fairly quickly get the price of other books in that general vicinity. So in the meantime, I'd like to thank you all for stopping by and taking a look at this video. In the meantime, you can check out a couple of my other videos. I'm going to put here the video I did about the CLZ app, and you can check that out and see how I use that and how the pricing data will be helpful. And this is Jim saying until next time, enjoy your comics.